let's talk about MCP servers, and specifically, we're going to talk about Data4SEO's MCP server. And with their MCP server, they don't host it on their own, and so they do have a public GitHub repository that will allow us to take that code and put it on our own server somewhere and have a ready to go Data4SEO MCP server, which we've already done that. We've made the installations and have it ready to go. But backing up a little bit, what is an MCP server? Previously, we would have had to make a bunch of HTTP requests, right, using this little magical node, right? So what we'd end up doing is, based on the API endpoints for Data4SEO we want to call, maybe it's the SERP results, maybe it's YouTube, we would have to have a bunch of these HTTP requests connected to the API agent so that it's hitting a specific URL or API endpoint, right? But what the MCP server allows us to do is it bundles all of that into one magical little node here, right? And the reason...
I'll tell you about my magical experience, but please go ahead.
All right, so this is replacing the multiple HTTP requests. And because we're now hosting our own MCP server and using authentication, we have access to all the tools that are available from Data4SEO in their MCP server. And to show you what's available, if I do, you can give this node access to all of them, but you can see here that you've got the SERP results, keyword data. Oh, it's got, instant pay. Oh, this is nice. So you can see it's got a lot. There is a lot. So instead of, again, multiple HTTP requests, you have one node for the MCP server. And the difference here is that you're going to call those using prompts instead of multiple HTTP requests, right?
Yeah.
So here is a simple example. All I'm prompting is saying, go get SERP results for AI news. So it's going to go and search for AI news. And from a system message, again, you guys can see here, I just used the default URL helpful assistant and only added the instruction to use the WattAI Data4SEO MCP client. That's it. And
yeah, so you're not telling it the actual Data4SEO tool.
I'm not giving the actual tool. I should, or this was an example, simple example, just so that there was a way for someone to see, oh, this is how I connect to the MCP server. The most important thing, obviously, here is the URL and the authentication here, where you're going to do a base64 conversion of your username and password to create this token, okay? So,
and importantly, the URL has to have SSE on the end.
That's correct. Yeah. So yeah, this is a very specific endpoint or URL for the accessing all those tools. So and in order to get this spun up, I did have to make some modifications to their GitHub repository, and so I have forked their code, made some modifications so that it would actually properly install onto a server via Coolify, and then also work with as a specific SSE endpoint to be used within NAtive. So there were some slight modifications, nothing major, no changes to the core functionality of the MCP server. It's more just how the server is being installed and called. So that's it. So if I run this real quick, if I run this real quick, you can see here, it's gonna take the instructions, do some thinking, and then go hit the tool, right? So let's see what the results are. So if we look at the output, I retrieved the SERP. Here we go. It knew to go get SERP, and that was a keyword for the tool that it was going to use, right?
Yeah.
So search for AI news, as I said earlier. Here are the top 10 results or top results. OpenAI's new AI browser or Opera's new AI browser. Okay, I think that might be a little bit old, but either way. So you can see this is done, and it didn't require a HTTP request versus the MCP server calling the specific tool.
Okay. Can I ask you? Let me ask you a question, if you don't mind.
And before you ask that question, Wayne,
Okay.
this is, again, this is a very, very basic prompt, but I think when we're using MCP servers, the prompt engineering becomes a much higher factor in making sure that you are getting the results that you want from the workflow.
Yeah, no, exactly. Can you think of this as effectively what happened is you told it to get the search for AI news and it went out to the MCP server, but it ended up effectively finding the Data4SEO API for that thing that you want. Like it found their SERP API.
Well, that's the tool, right, Wayne? That's the difference here is that instead of multiple HTTP requests, you have it bundled in a single MCP server. And so basically you're creating it found a SERP tool, right?
Yeah,
The
right.
terminology wise, consider the tool being a HTTP request, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's the
Well,
only difference.
you'll see why I'm asking that. That's effectively what happened. Okay, so I spent almost all day yesterday working with this to effectively replace a lot of what I did in my keyword research workflow with one MCP server. And what I found was it did not work as well as the HTTP requests. So if I did HTTP requests for related keywords and I said I wanted 25 of them, it gives me 25. And if I want 25 keyword ideas, it gives me 25. And I've been in contact with them about that, and I'll get to that in a moment. But what you can do in the prompt is where the Data4SEO API normally looks for a thing like limit, which would be the number of results you want. You can put that in the prompt.
Yeah.
And it gets into the request, but it didn't follow it as well.
Yeah.
And
I know. Yeah.
And Data4SEO support agreed with that. So it didn't return, the data quality back wasn't quite the same. And so I'm going to give it one more try. I just like deleted everything. I'm doing a new prompt. But then the other thing that you could do, let's say it all worked great and the data was exactly what you want. Oh, and I have another. Then you could still in this same AI agent say, take those keywords and develop me a content plan, right?
Sure.
Like give me a title and for each one of them. So all of that used to be in several AI agent nodes. And now you can do it all in this one, but it's prompting becomes even more important than.
Yeah. And you know what? I think for the stuff that we're doing that's more data heavy, I'm not convinced that the MCP server is the right way to go. And this is the reason is the prompt, right? Because I forgot which workflow I was working on, but I was like going bonkers because it just wouldn't follow the prompt. And there are so many variables that go into the prompt and how the language model is going to interpret that prompt at the time that you're running that workflow.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're experiencing here is that one time it might hit 20 results, one time it might be 15 results. And
that's right.
For some reason, the prompt and the language model and the way it analyzed that instruction at the time that you ran that workflow changed. from one instant, one run to the next. And so when we're trying to have very specific outputs and very specific number of results, etc.
Yeah.
I don't think we're there yet with the MCP servers.
Yeah. And the reason I was asking you about is basically finding that tool in Data4SEO is because I kept getting a lot of errors, and the error was this format for filtering, no, for sorting. This is the wrong format for sorting, so I can't give you information. But the thing is, and it's a subtle point, but it's important. The API itself, sorting is an optional criteria. If you don't put anything, it doesn't sort. It does whatever it defaults to is how it does it. But what was happening is every time the query was made inside the MCP server, it had a sort query in it that I didn't put there. And it was putting it in the wrong format. So it's supposed to be, this word and that word and this word. It was not doing that. So it would come back in error.
Yeah. And did you give
so
it
then I created prompts that said, if you get an error, do it again. And if you get 3 errors, stop trying, but try up into 3. And then it was running the whole workflow 3 times, and it got to be a huge mess.
Yeah.
But what I said to the support guys at Data4SEO was, whatever you're doing inside your own server, you're putting that sorting request in there. You're not giving me a way to set it, and it's messing things up. So take it out, because it's an optional. You don't need it. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it might be baked into the MCP tool call.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and they need to unbake it. They need to get
unbake it, man.
It's like, when companies do, automatic opt-ins of stuff when you shouldn't do it. Like they're adding.
Is it the keyword data or the SERP? Wait, hold on a second. Is it the keyword data or this?
Labs, Data4SEO Labs, that one, yeah.
Okay, let's.
Oh, I didn't know all that was there. I was wondering if this was somewhere.
Yeah, this is their GitHub.
That's when you told me they had it.
Yeah.
I didn't look at all that.
Let's see.
Because otherwise, and like you said, I think if you were really sort of needed exact, results, then you probably do want to go HTTP.
Yeah,
type.
I think so.
But if you're kind of, yeah, for ours, but if you don't need it exact, then this takes a bunch of nodes and squishes them into one, which is
yeah. I mean, I think you could. Yeah, so you can see, like, you can do filters.
Yeah. See, filters was the other one that was causing a problem, but it was the sorting. And the thing that was weird about it is their own sort of baked in thing was wrong. And I'm like, why would you do that? But okay, I didn't know all this was there. So I'm gonna, Alex, just for you to know, is I'm gonna play with it just a little bit longer, and then what I was hoping to do was get a video out on it because they asked me to do it, and I thought it'd be a good way to promote them and us.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Here's the thing, Wayne, is that I think developed. If we say, hey, we want our own custom, let's say we want a WAT AI SERP module, right? Because it's sorting weird and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Because we've already forked code, we could actually create our own module that's very specific to the search results that we want.
Okay. Yeah, and they do talk about you being able to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's what they're talking about here, is that we can take their example and customize that module so that when we're looking at this list of tools here, right, instead of all, we might have a tool that it says, Watt AI SERP, something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. No, that's
so
makes
like
sense.
because they've opened all of this up, and again, consider that all these modules are now, all of these are what we would have been using HTTP requests for, right?
Yeah. Can you go into the SEO Labs, Data for SEO Labs again, that folder? And then the tools, I guess. And then Google. Keyword research. Okay. So they, and then you can, if you, okay. Okay, yeah. Somewhere in there, there's a weird sort, I bet you. At least weird to me.
In here?
Yes, I think that's, there it is, results, order by. That's it. That's the culprit. I remember that, sorry.
Where did I, somewhere here, right? What? I'm not seeing it.
Well, that whole field is called order by.
Order by,
right?
duh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
see
if
where
you
they
want
have
to change this, yeah.
See where they have the example keyword underscore data dot, yeah, right there.
Mm-hmm.
That is wrong for some of these.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's sticking the wrong thing in the query.
I see.
And then it's sending it to Data for SEO, and it's replying, well, that's wrong. I can't do it.
Yeah, so I would actually create a specific one, copy this file, right?
Yeah.
This site tool one, make our own version based on what you need, right?
Yeah.
And then have you call that tool specifically and see if that works. But like you've spent so much time creating the HTTP request versions that are outputting the right information, and so trying to redo it for MCP, now you have to ask, is it worth it?
Right. Now, there was more than one reason that I wanted to do it, though.
Okay.
Which is outside the scope of our conversation at the moment.
Okay, gotcha. But yeah, I mean, we're exploring and figuring things out, and initially I was like, oh, they're not hosting their own MCP server. What a bummer kind of deal. But now I see it's actually to our advantage because we can create custom modules for the things that we need the MCP tool to do. So again, it's a combination of hard coding some of those requirements we might have, plus the prompt.
Yeah, and it could really be huge.
And so, one of your concerns was, well, it's the number of results, et cetera. Like those things I think could be variables added to the module on the code level, right?
Yeah, right.
So like something like this to figure out, well, where is it taking in? I'm sure I don't want to figure it out now, but there are somewhere in this code is an opportunity to insert a variable for number of results or number of queries, blah, blah, blah. And so then at that point, you don't have to prompt it. You just have to call the tool because you know that it's hard coded.
Right. Yeah.
Or we can send that variable as a setting, right? So, obviously this was a basic example, but as you and I know, our sort of default settings node, right?
Yeah, and I have one in mind.
Can include query number, something like that, right? And so you set a value here, and then that's what's vetted to it.
Yeah, and that's what I did. They actually call it limit. So, and I can see that the limit, like when you click on the I'm pointing at it as if you could see me, the actual MCP server, you can see what it did. Like over there on the left, where it has input, has the query. That's the stuff, right? That was a search engine.
Yeah.
If you, I don't know if this one has the limit.
It only went depth to 10 here.
You could, if you in your set node had depth and you set it to 20.
Include depth, right? And then here you would just put depth. Oops. Depth 30, something like that.
Yeah. And you should see when you run it again that it'll show 30.
Yeah. So we've got 30 here. Yeah. For the article include 30, right?
And like, for the keyword research based ones, I would have a primary keyword in that set nodes node, set fields node.
Yeah,
and
for
it
sure.
carries it in there. So you can sort of communicate with it.
Yeah,
I think they just have a little bit to work out on their end of just kind of overall operation.
The thing that they have here is that you could actually, make the code changes and then push it up to their repository and ask them include your changes into the overall repository, stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, that's probably not going to happen.
Not something you're gonna do, but I'm just saying, like, that's just the way GitHub works.
So, just so you know where I live with code, like I could look through that code and figure out where the order by thing was and change it. I just couldn't write it.
Sure. Well, that's where vibe coding comes in.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's where vibe coding comes in.